Oh, I think it's 7 o'clock. We are ready. All right, thank you. So it's 7 o'clock. This is a meeting of the Cohasset Select Board. It is April 9th, 2024. We are at Wilcox Commons, the Senior Center, 91 Third Street. I will start with a call to order. Mr. Creighton,
Jack Creighton here.
Ms. Mark,
Ellen Mar present.
Already present.
Jean Haley Dipple present. Okay, I would invite everyone to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance if they'd like.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so we are going to start the meeting with public comment. Is there anyone here for public comment? Is there anyone online? No one on Zoom. Okay. We will move then to the Veterans Park, the new memorial, Mr. Pratt. And Glenn, if there's anything that you'd like to sort of walk and talk about. Oh, thank you. We're handing you the mic. There you go.
Good evening, Glenn Pratt, King Street. Did everyone get the packet?
Yeah.
Yep. So we, over the last 55 years, have been building out Veterans Park at the harbor, and every floor is represented, listing the names of those who served, with the exception of the Revolution and the War of 1812. So we've come up with a plan to add a wall where we can list those names. First brought it to your board in 2019, but then we get sidetracked with COVID like the rest of the world. And we came back July of 22, showing you our idea of building a small wall along the seawall, which is the exact same design and size as the circular wall you see in the center. And on there, we would have the names of 312 classic citizens who served in either the Revolution or the War of 1812. That list has been compiled by the Daughters of the American Revolution, so we're pretty convinced that it's authoritative. And we have talked and met with the developers of the condominiums that are going in behind, because we wanted to learn what their hardscapes are going to be like and see that we could blend the two together. And I think we've got a plan. We know what they're going to do. We've each decided how we can blend things together. So the reason for coming tonight is in 22, basically your board said, yeah, continue to move along, check it out, let us know when you're ready to go. So here I am, ready to go. And what I would hope is that you would give us the green light to go ahead, raise the money to do this and get it constructed and have it finished in the same time frame that the condos finish up, so it all blends together. So that's the presentation, and I love questions.
Glenn, how much is the cost?
Everything is expensive, as you know. This is not a municipal project because we raised the money privately, but it's expected to be around 100,000.
Oh, okay.
When we built the round circle back in 2006, it was $235,000. So we've got a pretty good handle on the vendors who can do the work, the suppliers for the engraving of the plaques. So we're pretty comfortable that it'll work. We also know that the Historic Commission is doing a change in their harbor walk, so we talked to them about signage and things that they're doing. So I think all the people who are interested in this parcel of land in the next few months are talking to each other. It should come out pretty well now. You know, there is the money, so it's not likely to be ready before next Memorial Day. This is the beginning.
So
The authority to go ahead and build it. The Veterans Memorial Committee, we started in 1969, and we've been plugging along ever since. In the early 80s, Austin Ahern and some other World War II veterans were interested in building the World War II wall. They set up a nonprofit called Cohasset Historical Military Memorial to raise money, and we use that nonprofit status as we raise money.
And you don't expect to seek CPC funds?
No.
Okay.
We save them for bigger items.
Are there other questions?
Yeah, I just have a quick question, Glenn. Where is the wall in relation to the proposed harbor walk that's supposed to be part of a CHI development?
Yeah, so the well, this is the seawall, which goes right along. with-
Okay, so,
Yeah, so they're coming along their top of the seawall.
Okay.
A post and chain type design and bluestone walkway.
okay,
And their bluestone walkway will tie right into bluestone, which is gonna be here. We have some bluestone walkway there now. We have to extend it and it'll tie into theirs.
Other questions, Jack or
No,
Chris?
I'm fine.
Okay. Okay, I'll let-
As a veteran myself, I would make a motion to approve
Second,
request.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve your request, Mr. Pratt. Any further discussion? Nope. All those in favor, please vote aye.
Aye.
Great, thank you very much.
Unanimous.
Just another point of interest, if you've driven by Norman Todd Park, which is at the intersection of Norman Todd Road and Beechwood Street over the last 6 months or so, you may have seen that a boulder appeared there, right by the sign. And we've long had a plan to engrave that boulder that tells the story of Norman Todd's sacrifice, which is quite interesting. Norman Todd, World War II Marine, was among the first Marine units into Nagasaki and later died in 1947 from his exposure to radiation. Who knew? So we think that's a great story, and that's what's going to be eventually engraved on that rock. So, thank you.
Okay.
great, thank you.
Okay, thank you again, Mr. Pratt. The next agenda item is the memorial bench, J. Stephen Hill vote. You're welcome to come up if you'd like to discuss anything. Or you can bring the mic to you if easier.
Thanks.
yes,
The genesis of this project was back to 1970. My wife's falling in love with Cohasset. At that point in time, a young couple stood outside a small house in Barstow, while another couple stood inside. Turns out both couples had made the same bid on the same house. In those days, they had no room to move. The owner made the suggestion to flip a coin, and the winner would have the house. We stood outside, I could see through the window, I could see him flip the coin. I could see the other couple, I could not read what was happening, but he patted the other fellow on the back and shook his hand, took him to the front door. And I thought, oh, he got it. Then he came out the back door to us. And it was lecture long, and kind of staunch New Englander, not showing much affection. Walked over to me and a small grin on his face. Dangled something in front of me. Handed me the keys to the house. Said you won. I will never forget the look on my face that happened. Time passes. Things go wrong. She started to get ill. 3 years later. One of her favorite places was the harbor. Sitting on the benches, watching the people, watching the kids, watching the boats. You know, time was getting short. We started kidding about her sitting on that bench. And Kennedy said, "No, I'll get you your own bench." And she didn't believe it. A little more time passed. I missed the deadline. She died before I could get the bench. I want to keep my promise.
Okay. Thank you. That looks great. So we are looking at a bench at the harbor right near where Glenn is proposing to improve the wall, I think, right, Michelle? Or Chris? Is that the location? of the bench where,
So generally, this is gonna be the first time that anyone's actually used the policy, so. The tribute benches get a little plaque on them, then we put them in places that are prearranged. I believe in the harbor is one of the locations, and that's where, that's where we would place this. I couldn't tell you exactly where. I think we'll have to work with Public Works and figure out a location. There's plenty of places we're looking to replace and upgrade down there, so.
So it would be an existing bench or a new bench?
It would replace
A
a brand new
replace,
bench,
okay.
either replace one that's already there or add,
Okay,
so.
okay, are you okay with the flexibility we may need with the benches?
Yeah, in regards to like the harbor area as a whole.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know, we have been looking like down by the sailing club in general, but
Okay.
if you don't mind, if it were over near the veteran plaques where the new condos are going there, yeah, no, anywhere in the harbor area, I think is fantastic.
any comments?
My comments, I'd make a motion to approve, gentlemen, so. Request.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please vote aye.
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 All right. Unanimous.
Thank you.
Chris just said, since it's our first time, you guys will look at the benches, decide, you and the facilities department decide which one, right? Do we have the wording? It like
Yeah, I believe that was in the application.
only Hanson Hill, okay.
Yep.
So, and then you would notify the Hill family.
Yeah, so we'll stay in touch and let you know when it'll go in and,
Okay, and we have a payment to drop off.
Yes,
for the
yes.
bench, so let us know how you. want
yeah,
it.
so, I think you can just kind of come by the town clerk's
hall.
office, town hall and go to, and we'll have to just make sure that we know what it's for. So we'll let the treasurer collector's office know tomorrow.
Okay,
And you can, our office is literally next door to the treasurer collector, so
Okay.
we can help with any of it. So
Okay.
I'll let you know, when it gets ordered and when we'll install.
okay, so we'll drop, you want us to drop the check off later?
Yeah, anytime in the next week or so, it's great.
Chris, could we get a point, to put it as close to, if not on the spot?
Yeah, we'll try to put it down by the sailing club.
Like
So,
I said.
well, I know there's
We could.
benches down there that need replacement anyway.
Okay,
So we'll go take a look down.
okay, and the sailing club area is your ideal spot.
Yeah, and that's a very public area with a lot
Yeah.
of places. Yes.
Actually, our kids are one of the first participants in the sailing club.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I actually bought the house from the man who started the sailing club, Herbert Toll. Way back when,
That's
full circle. So now, the next item is the relocation of the election hall for the annual town election in June to Deer Hill.
So, because town hall is not usable, and we had a strong request, from Elder Affairs, or to look at some other options. And the schools were willing to do it and were able to do it for June 8th. It's a Saturday. There's also a challenge here. When swim season starts weekend, because the parking lot can be full for swim competitions and things. So, the schools are more than happy to do it it's a Saturday. It's an easy setup. No elections work here now. It'll be an opportunity for election here. And I don't think there should be any issue. It's an easy park. It's on a Saturday. It's in the gym right on the side of the building. So it shouldn't be a problem. And the school committee's approved it. So.
Okay. Any comments from the board? I have one comment.
Yeah, I have a comment too. Go ahead.
My only comment is that going forward, I think it's great to use Deer Hill, but I wouldn't want to set the precedent of always using Deer Hill, because if we have to close schools instead of using the senior center, that would be unacceptable. And so I think so long as we acknowledge that we're doing this only because it's a weekend, but on the weekdays, we shouldn't be closing school if we don't need to.
We're not able to actually use the schools for the next two elections anyway. So
Okay,
the prequel is that the clerk has already negotiated a deal with St. Anthony's. They'd like to host
oh.
primary election in
Parish
September
Center.
at the Parish Center. That said, I think, and this spot still remains the backup. That said, I think tonight's not that night to have this conversation. That said, this building works great for an election. And it doesn't, so that said, I don't, it's happened, we've worked. So the schools is a one-time for Deer Hill, but it's good to know how it works in case we ever needed it. But the next two are likely to go to St. Anthony's. That's how. They'll be approving those shortly, but not tonight.
Yeah, I was just gonna comment, June 8th, the kids are still in school. I don't think there'll be swim meets going on that early in the season.
It's not open,
The, the pool is open June 8th,
but not the swim meets.
but the swim meets, oh, okay.
Well, I mean,
Anyways, and what about recreational sports at Deer Hill on Saturdays, like T-ball and?
They've
soccer.
approved all of this, so I expect that everything's been accommodated, so it's kind of late
Okay,
in the school year. I mean, the high school is kind of senior classes graduated by that point, but this was cleared by the school, so and the school administration. As I understand it, there's no issues with that for June 8th.
right, but it's their recreation programs that.
Right.
That use the fields. And
This one,
I don't even know.
yeah, this is just gonna be in the gym, so it should.
Okay.
It's
Understood.
my understanding, it's
Parking.
all good, yeah. Well, you can also park in the back, right? Because of you can park in the back where where the teachers often park, and come in that way. I don't know how it's being set up. That's outside of my pay grade right now, but it is all set up. It is all been cleared for June 8th.
Okay.
Mr.
Yeah, I think we should be mindful that there is some sensitivity in the seniors about the senior center always being used for all kinds of things. So I think it's good that we are showing some sensitivity to that. But the other thing that it just occurs to me, there's nothing more sacred to our form of government in our special country than elections. So for the schools to have to make an adjustment so that we can do the fundamental nature of free government, it strikes me it's a good lesson for the kids to see that, hey, listen, we can talk about everything else, but this is a very special country and we actually vote and self-government. So I think we should be sensitive, and I think the kids should see elections going on and they should understand. And I would put elections very, very high in the priorities. So, thank you.
Any other comments? Nope. All right. Would anyone like to make a motion? Oh, you made it. Hold on. I don't think it's fully made. I'm gonna treat it as if it was fully made based on the agenda item. Would anyone like to second?
Second.
Mr. Plex has seconded. All right. All those in favor, please vote aye.
Aye.
Okay. Okay. We have unanimous ayes. We are now at the statement of interest for Cohasset Middle High School. This is the continuing statement of interest that the board has and the school committee has signed to apply for the MSBA program as it relates to the middle high school project to get into the program that will essentially seek funding for a renovation or new school, depending on what the MSBA recommends for the program. Is there anyone from the schools here? I don't think there is. Again, this is the same form we've signed pretty repeatedly. Questions?
It should be a form of there's like a.
Yeah, there were two that came
Yeah, there are two
late.
that came in.
And I believe we need to vote twice because it's the middle school and the high school. I think they're considered separate entities, I think. Yeah, sure.
I would just comment, if I may, Madam Chair.
Please.
So on page 13 of the statement of interest, it says total school student enrollment, please provide the current enrollment at the time of the school as of the statement of interest filing. And that was not filled in, and throughout the SOI, which is not new, it's pretty much the exact same one that it's been. You talk about overcrowding at the schools, and we're in an enrollment decline. Our enrollment has been declining since 2017. 10 years ago, we had almost 800 kids, grades 6 through 12. And now we're lucky if we have 700. So I just find that to be a challenging argument for me to understand from an overcrowding perspective.
I understand your perspective. And I have the same questions. And, you know, candidly, I'm not sure of the answer. The answer I got seemed to be, well, this is sort of the way that the MSBA wants us to apply. And that we should be checking off these boxes. Again, I'm not close enough to the process to understand what the implications of checking one versus the other, but I do think that the other boxes checked clearly are in play in terms of existing, you know, replacement, renovation, et cetera. And, you know, this may be something we need to continue to drill down on because we haven't gotten into the MSBA program. And
Right.
I'm not sure if this is one of the reasons that we keep checking this, notwithstanding the numbers.
Yeah, I don't think it's the numbers. I was just articulating that there was no data point in there. Did go, and I think, Chris, you were at the walkthrough with MSBA? No, Michelle, you were, like recently on a Friday, and it really has less to do with the condition of our school. It has to do with the condition of those also applying.
Yeah, it's all relative.
It's all relative, so,
Yeah.
I mean, they completely understood the educational challenges and the shortcomings in 21st century learning and all of that. And they're like, it's kind of like, welcome to the club.
Yeah.
Everyone's in that boat.
So we have to do, is there any further discussion? Chris?
Reading may be in order. I may be misreading it, but I think this is pulling some information about Osgood and reporting it about the high school, so I may be misreading that, but
Tracy's gonna literally update the final version of it as she vote, so she can put the actual name in. So. Just make sure it
is
says
that
middle school or high school, not
Yeah,
Osgood.
I don't know, Chris, are you looking at the whole, the 29 pages?
Yeah.
Okay, I have no.
Yeah, no, we have a- So you're voting on literally just a one paragraph thing tonight.
Okay.
That references that
so
document.
our vote is subject to fact checking.
Well, the schools completed that SOI, not us. We don't have any control of the input of that document. All you're doing is voting to authorize that to be. We will pass this back along to the schools, but you're voting to authorize its submission to the state.
I think we could ask them to fact check it.
Yes.
And we would like them to fact check it. And our SOI is, you know, with the assumption they're gonna fact check it.
And the specific issue I'm looking at is on page 13. The class sizes and the description are for Osgood and Deer Hill. Earlier, when it's naming the applications.
I see.
Are it's not Osgood and Deer Hill.
At the bottom of page 13, the current student to teacher ratios.
If you read up into the narrative just above that, Ellen.
Okay, yep.
Unless I missed a section break. Page 5 is describing progressive. So we'll just ask that. Proofreading be applied.
Okay, we have, two votes in the packet. I'm sorry, they're not in the packet. Tracy just sent them to us. I did want to check the votes to make sure, to your point, Chris, that, we're talking about the SOIs for the high school and then the middle school.
They both say high
They
school.
both say high school, so when we do the second one, we'll do the high school first, and then if we have to change anything on the middle school, let's make sure we're talking about the middle school, because we have to do separate submissions. So is everyone okay moving forward at this point?
Yeah, I'm
Any
fine.
question? Okay. All right, would anyone like to make the motion in the certification of the vote?
Don't we have to read it?
That's fine. Would anyone like to make the motion? I can read it. I'm fine with reading it. Just want to open it up to others. In an open meeting on April 9th, 2024, the Cohasset Select Board did by majority vote authorize Dr. Patrick Sullivan, Superintendent of Cohasset Public Schools, to submit a statement of interest to the Massachusetts School Building Authority. Said vote was made in the following manner on motion of the Select Board, and here's the motion. Having convened in an open meeting on April 9th, 2024, prior to the FOI submission closing date, the Select Board of the Town of Cohasset, in accordance with its charter bylaws and ordinances, has voted to authorize the superintendent to submit to the Massachusetts School Building Authority the statement of interest form dated April 2024 for the Cohasset High School located at 143 Pond Street, Massachusetts, Cohasset, Massachusetts, which describes and explains the following deficiencies and the priority categories for which an application may be submitted to the Massachusetts School Building Authority in the future, including elimination of existing severe overcrowding, replacement, renovation, or modernization of school facility systems, such as roofs, windows, boilers, heating, and ventilation systems, to increase energy conservation and decrease energy relating to related costs in a school facility, replacement of or addition to obsolete buildings in order to provide for a full range of programs consistent with state and approved local requirements, including deficiencies presented to this board by the School Facilities Committee Assessment Report, and hereby further specifically acknowledges that by submitting the statement of interest form, the Massachusetts School Building Authority in no way guarantees the acceptance or the approval of an application, the awarding of a grant, or any other funding commitment from the Massachusetts School Building Authority, or commits the town of Cohasset to filing an application for funding with the Massachusetts School Building Authority. Is there a second for that motion?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second as it relates to the SOI for the high school. All those in favor, please vote aye.
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 All those opposed? Did you vote aye, Paul? Oh, okay. Unanimous vote by the select board, Tracy. I made the motion, Chris seconded, unanimous vote. Okay, so that's for the high school. Now we have to do the same thing for the middle school. All right, in an open meeting on April 9th, 2024, the Cohasset Select Board did by majority vote authorized Dr. Patrick Sullivan, superintendent of Cohasset Public Schools, to submit a statement of interest to the Massachusetts School Building Authority. Said vote was made in the following manner. Upon motion by me, Jean Healy Dippold, having convened in an open meeting on April 9th, 2024, prior to the SOI submission closing date, the Select Board of the Town of Cohasset, in accordance with its charter bylaws and ordinances, has voted to authorize the superintendent to submit to the Massachusetts School Building Authority the statement of interest form dated April 2024 for the Cohasset Middle School located at 143 Pond Street, Cohasset, which describes and explains the following deficiencies and the priority categories for which an application may be submitted to the Massachusetts School Building Authority in the future, including elimination of existing severe overcrowding, replacement, renovation, or modernization of school facility systems such as roofs, windows, boilers, heating, and ventilation systems, to increase energy conservation and decrease energy-related costs in a school facility, replacement of or addition to obsolete buildings in order to provide for a full range of programs consistent with state and approved local requirements, including deficiencies presented to this board by the School Facilities Committee Assessment Report, and hereby further specifically acknowledges that by submitting this statement of interest form, the Massachusetts School Building Authority in no way guarantees the acceptance or the approval of an application, the awarding of a grant, or any other funding commitment from the Massachusetts School Building Authority, or commits the town of Cohasset to filing an application for funding with the Massachusetts School Building Authority. That's the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor, please vote aye.
Aye.
All right, Tracy, we have the unanimous vote. Okay. Thank you, guys. I think I need to sign something
Yeah.
for the schools, so. All right, now we wait. As usual. For the MSBA. It's in December when we learn. Okay. So the next item,
Before we get there, so don't we have to go through a similar process for the accelerated repair program? That,
We did.
A month ago, 2 months ago.
oh, maybe that was a meeting I wasn't here.
And
In
it
February.
was submitted, yeah, it was voted and submitted.
Okay, thank you.
yeah, we're waiting for that too. Interestingly enough, the difference between that one and this one was that we had to commit to do, we had to be able to have the for that one, i.e., because we had the stabilization funding, we were able to actually apply for that program and grant. Okay, select board goals. We have a town hall update. Michelle, can I give you the mic?
So last week or a couple of weeks prior to that, we decided that we were going to release 380 CJC in 1 Pleasant Street from their lease portion of the RFP. And we were gonna negotiate with 1 Pleasant Street for the purchase of the first floor unit. Since then, we had hired a municipal appraiser to appraise the property to make sure we were getting fair market value. The preliminary appraisal came back. So we began negotiating with the owner of 1 Pleasant. Needless to say, the owner of 1 Pleasant believes his property is worth more than what the appraisal, the preliminary appraisal was. And therefore he decided to pull out. He is no longer interested in working with the town to sell the first floor unit at the price that we are willing to pay based on fair market.
What is that figure? The specific figure that they,
So because it's preliminary, I'd rather not share that. It's okay with the board. And I also don't want to put him in any position if he does try to sell it on the open market.
Yeah, I don't think we went through with the full ultimate appraisal, and Michelle can give you, I think, the specifics on the market value appraisal. But it was a big gap.
okay,
Big
yeah.
gap.
So with that being said, and no longer having the option to move to 1 Pleasant Street, we're still moving forward with our plan of all the employees being removed from the historic town hall, moving into the annex. We've reconfigured space. We've looked into remote work and hoteling. We're also utilizing some of the offices at 135 King Street temporarily. However, this temporary move may turn into something more than temporary. So we're looking at other town buildings to see where we can house employees in the event that we need additional space. It is crowded in the annex, and then once we start working at 135 King Street, those offices are no longer going to be available to us. We did speak to John Hallen regarding his certificate of inspection, and he did indicate that every 6 months, as long as there was progress on a plan, that he would renew that certificate of inspection to allow us to occupy the annex. For an update as of right now. I know we were talking about some plan B moves, things we could do in the immediate because annual town meeting is right around the corner. We don't want to miss this opportunity to get before the community and have some type of solution for 41 Highland Ave. So Chris and I were talking, and perhaps maybe the best thing to do at this point is secure the envelope of the building, which means putting on a new roof and then the second piece would be, putting out design money for the sprinkler system, of historic town hall. All in all, I think that's about a $385,000 ask. But that would be the most immediate plan B that we can come up with in the short term.
Why don't you keep the mic, in case the board has questions? Any questions or comments?
So is the owner silent on One Pleasant?
He's,
Any chance that light will be seen overhead?
I did ask yesterday if he would reconsider, and he's not interested in reconsidering at this time.
So I guess I would say that while I appreciate that some people have a lot of feelings and opposition to One Pleasant Street out there. I think it's important to appreciate that even though the board liked the option, we were still gonna do our diligence. Because we also knew that there was a lot of people who also liked the option of One Pleasant Street, but as the fiduciaries for the town, we have to make sure that we're getting an appropriate price for the town. And so I know that there are people that are probably disappointed we weren't able to move forward with One Pleasant Street because it does provide us with probably one of the lesser expensive options when all is said and done for housing or municipal services. But at the end of the day, we do have a responsibility to make sure we're moving forth responsibly, whether it's on what the repairs to the old town hall cost or what One Pleasant Street's fair market value is. So it's a disappointment, including for people who were concerned about, tax increases and a sort of open question about the cost of town hall. But I do think that, the board had to do our diligence and press on the fair market value. It's our obligation to do so. So, we had to fulfill it. So that brings us to next steps, unless anyone else wants to ask questions or talk about One Pleasant. That brings us to next steps about what the board feels makes sense at this juncture. It seems like there's probably a few options. I have some in my mind, but before I go forth, I don't know if anyone has some ideas on your end. Jack?
Well, this is certainly disappointing news. This is not uncommon in the world of dealing with older properties and providing services. So I think this select board deserves some credit for just not ignoring it and looking at this and then dealing with changes and then adjusting to changes and listening to what various parts of the people in town think. So we'll go forward. We have got an obligation, and I congratulate my fellow select board members for rolling with the punches, but I think I can speak for everybody to the whole town that we will get through this. Thank you.
Any other comments? No? So I think we have probably, I'm just gonna suggest maybe 3 pathways that we have to make decisions on immediately. If we want to do capital warrant to secure the building, we really need to get that recommended to the warrant immediately, and begin that process through capital and advisory. In order to do that, I have heard from the Community Cultural Center group that they are interested in, let's say, something went in that direction, they are interested in maintaining the entirety of the building and not demoing the annex. And so if we were to put a new roof on, even if the building ultimately went in the direction of the community center idea, it wouldn't be wasted money based on at least feedback we're getting right now. Because I do think that's the concern, that we would be doing repairs that might ultimately be redone or torn down depending on the ultimate trajectory of the building. So that's one option. While we also, I would suggest, want to do something else in the interim, layered on top of that, which could be, for example, a working group to put together a group of folks that are interested in this issue to help look at, space for relocation purposes, both on a temporary and a permanent basis. I think that there are some folks that have provided really constructive suggestions. We could also have representatives from Capital and Advisory on as well to make sure, all the committees are sort of moving in the same direction. If that was something that we wanted to try to do collaboratively, we had a lot of success last fall, I think, having a very small working group working on the long-term financial plan. It was really helpful to try to get all the different perspectives and then try to unify as much as possible and move forward. We could do that. We could also, and neither of these are, this isn't mutually exclusive. We could also put a sense of town meeting warrant article on for June. Again, if we're going to do that, the question is what's going to be in that sense of town meeting. Is it going to be, something akin to, do you want us to stay in town hall and sort of keep it as is? Or do you want us to, move forward and explore more creative options, including to reduce the price? We'd have to figure out how to word it and what we'd be putting out there. And I think the other option is to also just have the working group work with the intent of coming back for something in November when we have more time. We already have an election scheduled, obviously presidential election. And we/you would get a lot of feedback from the voters. That's going to be a very high turnout election. And so that's another option, or ATM for that matter, if it's not ready by November, instead of trying to race to get something done. Working together maybe with the Cohasset community group while we look for relocation options or some sort of hybrid till we have like a full final package ready. I think the only thing that lingers in my mind is there's the citizens petition out there, which I think tries to sort of force a decision in one direction, but I think that the price they've estimated is probably incorrect, not the full price of the decision path they want. And so I think that is, sort of the consideration we have.
Yeah, I think the citizens petition, we're kind of getting to where we don't have a lot of other options. I do agree that I think their idea of the costs involved in that is not realistic, having had some experience with this types of things over the years. But it doesn't seem that there's any easy way. We've looked at everything. We've been very, very creative, and we may come back to, we're going to have to deal with what it is we have now, and we're going to have to figure out the best way we can make what we have now serve the needs of providing for town government. That may be where we end up, but I do agree that the citizens petition, as I have seen it, their pricing is very, very unrealistic.
I do think we're at the point where money invested in the preservation of 41 Highland Ave is money well spent at this point, whether that goes to the benefit of the community group or to a longer term Cohasset Town Hall. I think that's money well spent. I do hope another less expensive option comes up, but with One Pleasant going in the direction it has, I think we have to reconsider whether or not 41 Highland Ave and some kind of renovation there at the cost that we know is going to be difficult to pass is what we should explore. And I just hope the town has the appetite and the patience for another look at that.
So what was the cost of restoring the whole building? I forget what it is, I have it, but restoring it, getting up to snuff, including
$18 million. that number?
18 million.
But the minimal, like the bare minimum, again, bathrooms not
It's
changing.
about 8.5,
Yeah, it was like
8.9.
8.5, although it doesn't include relocation costs if we have.
18 million include everything?
Yeah.
Including relocation costs for the short term?
As of 20. Just want to stamp it in 2023, not 2026. Would it probably break down?
So, my thoughts are kind of jumbled, so, but I'll try to clarify them because I can ping pong in any direction. I think, we're talking about relocation costs. We're talking about we can't be at 135 King Street forever. But when 135 King Street came up, we said it's going to be a year of design and engineering before so we have a year there, right? So there's not this urgency, and I'm struggling with this urgency to find a relocation plan. And I also think when one opportunity doesn't come to fruition, there'll be another opportunity down the road. And I think we're trying to figure that out now instead of waiting. And I think your approach of let's get the roof, let's get the sprinkler system, and then go from there, because maybe the appetite in the town is project by project to get things done that may or may not require long-term relocation of people. And maybe that's something that they can, stomach on in terms of a stabilization fund or money out of capital stabilization so that things get addressed and fixed, as opposed to these mind-numbing 8.4 to $18 million figures. And I think maybe that could be the approach to take. And, do people need to move out when you put in carpeting and paint the walls? Sure, but that's not a months-long endeavor. And we can be strategic about it. So I like, Jean, your idea of a working group to kind of just dig in and say, okay, what do we have to do and how do we have to lay it out to get it done? Because I think the town has voted, they don't want to spend multi-million dollars.
So I don't disagree with that, which is why Mount Pleasant was, candidly attractive, because my concern with doing it over like a 20-year time period is when all is said and done, you're probably gonna be at more than 20 million potentially, right? Over that course of time of the costs escalating with each year, like even just the library amphitheater, that was supposed to be what, a $450,000 project, now it's $650. Even if you try to do like a smallish, relatively smallish project, we're fighting against these constantly escalating costs. And so I think that what I would personally want, both as a voter and a select board member, is if we're gonna do the piece by piece, sort of akin to what the citizens petition is suggesting, that's fine, but I want to see the pieces laid out and like the full cost over the course of time. If it's going to be a 10-year plan, I want to understand that. I don't want to be looking at another tax increase in year 4 because we've hit the capital stabilization fund so much and pushed other stuff aside. We've now created a tax and indirect tax as a result of this sort of spreading out a $20 million project over 10 years approach, or however we do it. I think it's important to be transparent with the voters about what we're really talking about and what the real cost is, which I know you're not suggesting that that we not be, but I do think that you're gonna probably face questions about a bottomless pit and what that looks like, what that costs, and what the effects are on other things that we've been trying to manage through the capital stabilization fund.
Right, but then the numbers we've been using candidly come from last year's study, which the charge was for a design and renovation, not just repair. It was for, so it might not be 20 million because that was one particular project. You know, maybe we treat it like, you know, our own home and say, okay, what do we really need to get done?
Oh, I'm not even thinking 20 million, I'm thinking 8 million. Like, we should be telling people if we think it's gonna be 8 million just to do minimal repairs and upgrades and code compliance, like. If we have a reasonable belief that, like, forget about anything pretty or nice, like, just the baseline is 8 million, like, we should tell people that.
Considering the timeline that we have available to us, I think the approach that we should be taking is let's apply a Band-Aid in the form of building envelope work. And then at town meeting, the Band-Aid is the proposal. After town meeting, we start coming up with a plan.
Yeah.
That would be maybe 8, maybe 10, maybe 12. I think we go beyond 12, we really start to lose people. But I am of the strong opinion, having gone through a renovation or two, you gotta have a plan at the beginning. If you try to chip away and figure it out every year, you end up doing rework, it starts eating away at you. And I also think that's fair to the voters to have a plan on day one, so they know what they're signing up for.
And I think that you can have some reasonable understanding. You can have some reasonable understanding if you think ahead when you look at what you have to do and what has to be done. And the thing you have to protect yourself against is doing stuff that you have to do over again. And a little foresight and some experience will tell you, all right, we don't want to do that because then we'll have to do this over again. Can take some time, but I think we in fact are probably going to end up having to do it that way.
Well, and I think the missing puzzle piece that we've been trying to put together, and I think that our nonprofits have, I think, put their finger on the pulse here, is if, including through a working group, we can work with, we can think through programming in that space in a better way. I think that's gonna be easier to sell an $8 to $10 million project or some sort of hybrid project where we have some staff, but not all staff remain at town hall. And, you know, maybe we have nonprofit groups in the auditorium section. And, you know, being able to use the top floor for nonprofit purposes where it really does act as a community center in half the building, because I think then we'll have a lot more voters engaged and be able to use the building in a way that I think has been missing in prior votes. And so I think if you had a working group that was focused not simply on the construction path and the plan, which I think is very important, Chris, but also on the programming aspect and how we might be able to work with, you know, nonprofits if you know, we were to sort of continue in that vein. I think that would be the missing piece to try to get people excited about why they should even pay 8 million. Because I think the why we should pay 8 million is still sort of an open question for a lot of people. You know, the people who came to the town hall forum are people that are volunteering committees and are heavily invested in town government, which is great. And we appreciate that, but there are 40 people out of the, you know, 2,000 that are gonna be voting. And so we have to really figure out the outreach to the greater population of Cohasset. Particularly with the tax increase, we know, we just look at the numbers, we know the amount of people that are gonna, right? People care about their taxes, understandably so. So does the board have, so I'm trying to take in feedback. Is the board thinking that we wanna direct Michelle to come up with a warrant article as it relates to the roof and the sprinklers? For this upcoming town meeting to secure the building while we work on a bigger plan? At the same time, should we be thinking about a working group and who we might want on that working group to begin working towards the plan, or do you want to wait and see what happens at town meeting?
Sure, those people are gonna wanna come on that working group.
I was in favor of everything that you said, right up to the working group.
Okay.
I think we may end up there. I think it's unlikely that we are going to be comfortable with the direction around a working group or some other option prior to needing to put a warrant, putting it, an article on the warrant.
Would it be a separate article or would it just be part of the capital article?
Down below.
The roof and the,
Either way, because it's such a compact project, it would normally roll it into, it's not a lot of money. And we expect there'll be about $100,000 left when we close out the money from the prior projects. We think there'll be $100,000 left, which can apply right to this project. So the net cost, plus the board voted $500,000 into the capital stabilization fund. So
that's what I
it's
was,
definitely the money available, not to, and it won't impact any other project that's already in the capital plan. So the roof and the design work for the fire suppression could start, if that's what you want to propose. And again, I think it should just be wrapped in the capital article. I don't think it's that, you can put it separately if you want to, but I don't know if you need to.
You talk about securing the envelope of the building, you're talking about roof, you just said. You may want to factor in windows there. I've seen the windows and they're falling out. So if we're going to factor in a stabilization plan. I think we should do it right. And see what the costs are. You know, at least roof, windows. Is included, I don't know, but things that. You know, correctly secure the envelope of the building.
Specking out what the windows would be, I mean, because they're a little different because of the historical side of the building and the.
I would, because, you know, you never know what the options be. We may wind up restoring the annex. Completely working with the nonprofit to restore the town hall, the historic part. Say that tongue in cheek. So we don't know what those options are gonna be. But at the very least, if we get the ball rolling. My thoughts is securing the envelope, but doing it right. Right? We're not gonna paint it yellow this time, paint it white, get new windows, do the right things for the building. Then you start examining your HVAC, your air conditioning, things like that, so you don't, those things falling out. That may be a subject for another day, but talking about securing the building, I would suggest roof, windows, things like that to tighten it up. At the very least, and if, as my colleague said, that the nonprofit's not interested, if the annex goes the way of the nonprofit, they want to keep it, fine. If we're gonna have town staff in there, we have to address that in a shorter period of time. But I would, my thoughts, the board could disagree with me in its entirety.
I mean, as to the windows, I think you're right, Paul. They look like they're in a precarious state. They're probably gonna be pretty expensive. Particularly in the historic portion, and if we redo the windows, and I think this is the tension of like just sort of doing things ad hoc. If we redo the windows in the annex, what I would like to see is a citizen who cares about the aesthetic look of it is. It should be matching the historic portion, like the way that we have it now with the grids the way they are, it's completely dissonant. And so from an architectural standpoint, I think we would want windows that are different, that look different, not just securing the building, but also like aesthetically look historic, like we try to make it look as historic as possible if we are going to be investing in that. And I think that's the tension where it's like, okay, so if we do that, are we going down a more complex pathway right now without having that full plan in place? That's what I'm struggling with, like, you know, how we do that.
Well, suggest at least, very least, the annex on the historic windows, they are falling out, wood. The others are some sort of material, aren't they?
fiberglass and wood.
In the annex as well.
But the historical side was done in this inner windows, so clearly the ones that are exterior, but most of them have the varying degrees of interior replacements that were, they did so it didn't look ahistoric. If you're inside, so we could definitely go through it, Paul. I think it has to be studied, figured out, like what would be
Something for our building inspector to look at, all right? So we're not costing for big surveys and stuff like that and getting Newpro down here to give us an estimate. Charging us for it, and I'm saying that tongue in cheek as well.
I think we have, I think there was a lot of scoping done on the windows anyway,
Then
so.
we go with that program and see what we come up with. At least, we make them something we can all agree to, and the town will agree to. But at the very least, as I said, we've got to secure the envelope. And it may even factor in down the road if work out something with the nonprofits on the historic side. We've got the ball rolling at the very least. So, because they're gonna be doing their fundraising, and do we leave it? All right, the interior is yours, have at it. And anything after that is, on that side of the house, the annex is, because we have to care about the people that work at the town. I don't think that point gets out enough. I repeat it till I'm blue in the face. I just don't think that point's ever been raised. Is that we're tossing around like pink balls. I don't like it. And, so that's what I would say. You guys need a safe place to work. We need to restore that bloody old building, and that's my thoughts on it. But if we have Howland studies or the studies you have in the windows, I would suggest, if we want, as Gene said, making the annex look as historic as possible, fantastic. Let's see what our costs are. And whatever we have to present to the town, we've got to have our ducks of some sort. And then we'll have to hear from the nonprofits or whoever else wants to be involved in town hall. I agree wholeheartedly, and the citizen petition is going to be a constant drag on capital, because it'll be an ask, if that's the way they go. That's
But
it.
I'm gonna,
Say whatever you want.
so in November, I'm not gonna be on the select board. And if we're gonna use the approach, or if the citizens petition goes through in June, then I can completely see people like myself, citizens at the town meeting, putting forth citizens petitions to say, I want to do the bathrooms. I want nice bathrooms for the farmer's market, for the kids on the common. I want historic windows in that annex, so I don't have to constantly drive by a 1980s building. This is the peril. Everyone then decides to like renovate at their will the town hall in all sorts of different potentially conflicting ways. Once you open that door, people like me are gonna probably be like, okay, well, if that's what we're gonna do. Hey, every parent who wants to come, let's all go and vote to like put 4 bathrooms into the historic auditorium, and now all of a sudden, we're chipping away at money in all different ways, and I know how to ask for funding in a citizen's petition. And I'm gonna do it correctly, and so if this is gonna be the game now, which I hope it isn't, because I think it's irresponsible, but if this is gonna be the game of how, we move forward doing ad hoc citizen ideas in order to fix the town hall, I am concerned about, I'm concerned about the precedent that sets. I'm concerned about the cost it will create. And I'm concerned that we don't have a working group, of professionals that are going to be helping to navigate the process in a unbiased way. Or if it is biased, at least we'll have, people on both sides of those who are, looking towards preservation and one, but, having some voices on the other side. And so I'm a little concerned about, not what you're saying, Paul, just again about the citizens petition approach to renovating a building. It's sort of like doing zoning bylaws, like one
It will
section
never
by
get
section.
done. That's what'll happen. That's never gonna happen. Just won't get done. We heard the gentleman the other night say, what happened? So, well, we just stopped. Okay, so we just stopped the exposed wiring or whatever phase of the project they happen to be into. But I understand the first year they want to pave the walk. Okay. But my feeling on that is that nothing's gonna. Steel project is gonna go on ad infinitum.
But I do think it reflects frustration by the citizens that we need to do something with the building and figure out what that is. And so I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I'm just trying to lay out what the lesson you send to everyone else about how we do this renovation project or repair project to town hall. I think it opens the floodgates in ways that may not be appreciated, which is why I'm bringing up that specter. And I do think that town meeting would probably appreciate in June, knowing that the town has a plan for how we're going to a plan for a plan,
A plan
right?
for a plan, yeah.
That's why I sort of keep focusing on the working group, because I do think it's a lot for the select board to maybe keep thinking about a plan for a plan. It's taking a lot of our space and energy when we have a lot of other things to do, like, for example, our $50 million budget. That sort of comes at the end of the meetings as we circle around this $8 million, right? And so I think, I don't know if a working group is the right solution, but I do think we need a plan when we get to June.
Well, you have to start. And I think we've already sketched out what the start is. We've got to have an envelope, windows, roof. And yes, everybody's gonna come up with all kinds of different ideas, but I think we know how difficult it is to move a new idea forward and do that. I think at this point, we need to set a parameter of the basic envelope, just call it the envelope. And we can all, I think everybody can agree on that. And with an envelope, you have to do it right. And then we can figure out the other stuff. But I just think that the way events have gone forward now, this is kind of where we are and but an envelope done right and the other things, and Gene's point is well taken. But the people who want to do all these little things are going to have lots of difficult times. I mean, we know what difficult times are. So anyway, I'd be in favor of first of all, getting the envelope secure.
So kind of begs the question, I mean, when we think of why the citizens petition came about, it was because of One Pleasant Street. And now One Pleasant Street is off the table. And I'm wondering if there's still going to be this push by this group, because the impetus was to keep town government on Highland Avenue in reaction to One Pleasant Street. And so now I just wonder if, after having heard all of the comments, and I think I'll give them an A for ambition, but I don't think that it's achievable, and we'll be dealing with the unintended consequences of what happens if the plan that is presented at town meeting doesn't come to fruition. I mean, phase one for $1 million, roof, sprinklers, engineering code review, HVAC, and a walkway. Do we really think that's all gonna happen? And then, so what doesn't happen there rolls into the 10 things that are in phase two for $1 million. And then there's 9 things in phase 3. So we know it's not achievable, and we will have to deal with explaining, well, it was said that we were gonna do this in phase 2 and now it's not happening. And so I'm just wondering if there'll be some rethinking of the position of the citizens petition now that One Pleasant Street is off the table and this push isn't needed.
I don't know, Ellen. I do think, and I think we can have the citizens petitioners come forward, including with the estimate, if they're still pushing. I'd like to understand the basis for the estimates, the specific information upon which we're relying. Heard it generalities at the forum, but there was no specific or precision behind it. Have bids we're relying on from people who are willing to work at the prices they provided to the town. That was not the case with the information I heard. And I think though, setting that aside, I think that what I'm trying to say in a diplomatic way is that the plan that or the warrant articles that we are circling around may suffer from the same issues as the citizens petition of this sort of open-ended question of, yeah, but this isn't everything. What about everything else? How are we gonna do it? So I just think that over the next month and a half, we have to figure that out. It's probably not gonna be a warrant article, but some sort of going forward plan, even if it's as simple as what we're gonna say at town meeting in response to those questions, because we will get
Discuss that. I mean, you're much. I'd say, well, where they're going with that petition, and we know that it was brought forward by a certain group of individuals who want what they want, and I'll leave it at that. But if we come to town meeting with a plan in place, or to a degree of buildings tightened up, I don't think anyone in the town's going to go along with that, including the petitioners. I'm imagining. Then if we have a proposal from our nonprofits to cost of getting the annex fixed, separate the costs, maybe, I don't know. We'll come up with that over time since we're back at square one. But if we have a cost separate of what's it gonna cost to get that annex up where it's a safe, comfortable work environments conducive to town. People working there. And then we have the breakout of that. If we can maybe do something in junction with town, if we're allowed to do something with the nonprofits as far as restoring the building, the inside. Done our job, the town's done its job, tightened it up. We made it look nice, and let's see what happens with that. That's the only thought I have. Is I've kind of hit the bottom of the barrel as far as 4100 Avenue Town Hall. And over the years, it's become town hall fatigue. It's tired of it. So I think if we do go and work with the nonprofits, we may come up with something, and we may work something out with the petitioners as they have this, idyllic vision of services remaining on our historic common.
I'm still in favor of a simple envelope repair, roof, windows. The prices are reasonable. I think there are reasonable questions about whether or not the windows would fit with the plan going forward. I'm very reluctant to try to come up with even a plan for a plan in the next 6 weeks. One doesn't look good, it doesn't look good anymore. So we got to go back to the drawing board. And I think we're honest with the voters and we say, look, we thought we had something, we don't anymore. It's good that we don't anymore. We have a reason, it was too expensive. So now we're trying to find something else that will work. And we hope you, the voters, will work with us on that.
Michelle, did you want to add something about the
I
windows?
just want to ask a question. So, so my question is, if we're going to move forward with the roof, windows, and design for sprinkler system, are we going to move forward with design specs so we can actually go out to bid and get prices for the roof and the windows that we can rely on?
We have a choice.
Okay.
That's my view. I don't think we have a choice. I mean, it's been sitting in limbo for what? How many years now?
Yes.
So there's been a lot of energy gone into all three proposals. So maybe this is the time we say to the three different proposal proponents, now what? And let those three groups throw some ideas together, which may bring us to a different place. Because they have all the energy of the nonprofit, petitioners, everyone go away in a room, goes home and sits down, lost all that thought, maybe we should try something.
There's one comment. I'm just gonna read it so they can hear me. Hi all, this is Whitney, thank you. Now is perfect to work with us in the citizens petition. Let's be with you on the same working group. Let's come together in harmony and do this thing. Like Mark Cameron said, March 27th. It can be done, but everyone has to come together.
All right, any other questions? So I think, listen, I think Glenn, if, and Whit, if you guys want to get together and make a proposals to the select board on your own without having to follow, you know, the strictures of a town working group, more power to you. I think the select board is open to information coming at us. I think you do see that we have the requirements of government procurement laws, and so I do think that that's always a challenge for us in terms of whatever proposals we're receiving. You know, we've heard a lot about, oh, I talked to a friend who said, you could do it for X amount, like, that's not gonna work in this context, and I know you know that. But I'm just saying it, you know, for the public at large, that I think continues to be frustrated by the cost, as are we, because it seems like it can be done for cheaper. Which I think if the community groups, and this is why we were listening carefully to your idea, if the community groups took ownership of the building and had that control, then they could renovate it however they want and hire whoever they want. But we're not really at that place necessarily, but that certainly is an option that's out there. In terms of a select board working group, I think that it sounds like people maybe want to hold, that's the sense I'm getting, at least maybe think about it, hold on that. I do think that, and I'll just say, my personal thoughts are that whoever is on the working group, I think, has to come to it. Being able to work collegially with others, including considering other options that may be on the table. I think one of the challenges for the select board is that you know, we have had to deal with folks that are seemingly very angry that their ideas are not immediately being adopted or they're not being made into working groups. And the challenge that we have is we have to sell a proposal to all of Cohasset and get funding for it, not just
10 people.
a small portion of Cohasset. We really need it to be representative. Because those are the people that we see are going to be critical for votes at town meeting or at the election, and we want Cohasset to come together, not just be bullied into a proposal. Because I don't think that's a winning way to go about it. And so I think that it not only requires the knowledge, but also the mindset of being open-minded. And I know that there are citizens that have reached out to us, reached out to me behind the scenes that continue to offer new and different ideas that try to like help us think through, you know, without sort of any animus, how we can continue to work through that problem. And I really appreciate that, because that's a constructive, helpful voice for us that I would recommend to the select board as you move into, you know, a new select board year in June. Those are the people that you want on the group, and maybe some of them are among the citizens petitioners, maybe. Maybe there's some among the community groups. I know for sure there's some that have, you know, reached out to us quietly behind the scenes, trying to be helpful, given their expertise. I think trying to be constructive is probably the most important here, and keeping an open mind, because I do think the Cohasset voters are looking for that flexibility and that constructive nature. So anyway, sorry for waxing poetic, but I do think that that is really important. Okay, are there any other comments on this?
So pause on the setting up this committee. I have one comment, because we've had some very good people, really dedicated on these committees, and I believe the select boards have made the mistake of not correcting the charges when a new board comes in. They learn a lesson on that. So I could imagine there's town hall fatigue among those dedicated people. Worked awfully hard, their proposals got shot down. And personally, I'd take some responsibility for that as well, select board member at the time. But I would say this, it would have to be a vetted committee, because my inclination, I won't wax poetic. I would make a guarantee as who's gonna want to jump on that committee, and it's gonna be a very linear direction which they want to take town hall. So it would have to be vetted. So my first inclination right now is to hold it off until we see, because as Gene said, there have been some people that have reached out behind the scenes. No bias whatsoever, and that just want to see this bloody project done and over with, as I think everybody in this board on that. The town hall is just done. Got a number of other fish in the fire, and I'd like to see it put to rest.
Yeah, I agree with Paul on the charge. We've had a number of really dedicated citizens who have spent a lot of time on this issue, only to be disappointed in the end. And that was probably our mistake, my mistake too, as a new select board member, not realizing that, we should have stopped that. It's going too fast. But it also made us, I think, a little wary of putting together a new committee that didn't have sufficient direction and charge from the select board. Because we didn't want to see other people go through that as well. Including people who were just trying to figure it out along the way with us. And so it's a really hard situation, but I agree with you, Paul. Any other comments? Yes, Jack?
Yeah, I think it's important that we all, and everybody in town, recognize that we're all in this together. The level of some of the invective that's been addressed to myself and some other people, I think was unnecessary. The appreciation of all of our citizens who have worked so very, very hard on various things. We need to understand that when somebody does something, they're doing it for the good of the town. And that way we can work together as a town, and we're gonna have to do that. I think we're actually a pretty healthy community. I think we have a lot of discussions going on now, and I'm very encouraged to see people talking to each other and reaching across the various aisles that may or may not have divided us, but we're getting there, and let's all remember how lucky we are to be in Cohasset.
Okay, so thank you, Jack. Where we are is, sounds like, Michelle, we would like you to come back to us with a more perhaps firm number and proposal for roofs, windows, sprinkler, and what that looks like for purposes of a number and how we're going to fund it.
Do we need to?
Sprinkler design. Right,
How much is the actual sprinkler, the full?
we don't know, because we have to design it before we can go into bid. But we have those budget numbers anywhere between $1 and $1.5 million, but all the numbers presented. The budget numbers.
50,000.
Well, okay, so the bid numbers that we go back in 2023 are 1 to 1.5 million for the annex and the historic town hall.
For the sprinkler.
This-
For the sprinkler, John Helen received a budget number back in November from a vendor who came and walked the building and said I would plan a budget number between $1.5 million.
Okay, sorry, thank you for the correction. So this is an updated number from November 2023, the 1 to 1.5 million just for the sprinklers for the entirety of the building, based on a sprinkler vendor who came and walked the building. But we need the design to do the actual bid, to
Correct.
get the firm number. And 1.5 million is not an amount we can fund at this point, or 1 million for that matter, without a tax increase. Unless we take it out of the town's reserves, which I don't think we should do.
So I think the first step is design, so you get the design and then we'll be ready for perhaps, special town meeting or with that actual number. But I feel more confident with being able to get an actual number for the roofs and an actual number perhaps for the windows, depending if we can dust off that old design.
Okay. In light of the close timing we have on this, does the board feel comfortable that Michelle go to advisory and capital if they happen to have meetings before we do
Yes.
with the
Yes.
numbers to keep it
Yes.
moving? Okay, all right.
We
I just
got approved.
I just want, because I know typically you want to come back to us, but given the tight time crunch, I just wanted to.
Capital is meeting tomorrow night, so I think
Okay.
that's the idea.
Okay, perfect.
That open.
Okay, so we're looking at roofs, windows, sprinklers, for a building for asset protection, and securing the envelope. Okay. And we're gonna on the rest, whatever the rest may be. So next item
I
is,
have a question.
sure,
Ask. This is probably according to John. If we have a sprinkler and fire suppression, would that allow that building to be, even though it's limited, or is it more structural, to let people say your elections and stuff like that? I'm just looking for some bait, to be honest with you.
So I don't know that I'm comfortable providing that,
You don't
because
have
it's
to
all
answer it. It's just something to
Yeah.
throw in there, just to see.
all kinds of code issue.
Yeah, I know it's
There's
out of
all these
code,
building
so-
codes and,
So that's all I was asking. I was just looking for something to cast out there.
okay.
okay. And Michelle, I think as soon as you know the numbers on that, particularly with the windows, if it's more than we anticipate, we should think about funding mechanisms. It looks like we're looking at capital. We're looking at the existing money we already have previously dedicated from prior town meetings. But if it's a surprisingly high amount, then we should probably think that one through. But continue pushing it forward to the other committees. We'll see where. Okay, so the next item is creation of a fund for rental income for 135 King Street pursuant to chapter 40, section 3. Michelle or Chris?
Basically, this is just a fund that, we're gonna have two tenants in there for about a year of the tanning salon and the karate studio. They're gonna expire. We knew this, and they know that they're gonna, when they put this up, they're out. So, the rental income, we figured would be best served by going back into the building, either for any work we have to do, like, keying and stuff. It can also go into, help pay for some of the preliminary design work that has to be done. So it's only, the fund would be created, it's not a revolving fund, it's just a special fund. So you have to set it up now and it run through the end of the fiscal year. Then you have to set it up again in July, because we don't want, there's no reason to create a permanent revolving fund, because we're not gonna rent the building out once it's turned into a permanent police and fire station. So it'll allow the money to be respent without having to go back through town meeting. And it's not a lot of money, but I said it's about 4,000 a month, is that what we're saying?
A little bit more than that. It's about $5,000 a month.
So about 15,000 for the first 3 months, and then as much as another 60 for next year. And that could be used for, we have to come back to the board for that, but we'd have to, be spent for any work facilities has to do, and then as well, any of the consultants that we're gonna end up being to retain to do the building design work and planning.
Are there any comments or questions?
I just have a clarifying question. In the second attachment that you sent, in the middle paragraph, it says, any balance remaining in the account at the close of a fiscal year shall be paid into the general fund of such city or town, semicolon, provided that in any city or town that accepts this proviso, I don't know how to say that word, any balance shall remain in the account and may be expended for the upkeep and maintenance of any facility under the control of the board, committee, or department head. So I'm confused. Does it stay in the special account or does it?
So there's another step to make it stay over a fiscal year. You have to have a town meeting vote for that. So select board can create the fund all by itself right now,
Yep,
but it doesn't last. It only lasts to the end of the fiscal year.
Okay.
This doesn't give you the entire big chunk of law. In order to make it a permanent revolving fund, you have to then go to town meeting to approve it. We do that every year with other funds.
yeah.
We didn't think that made sense only because it's not gonna last. It's gonna go away in a year anyway. So if you just recreate it, spend it out by the end of June, whatever's in it, and then next year, it should be expired, we'll spend it out by the end of that. fiscal
Okay.
year. Does that make sense?
Yep,
And then
but if you
recreate it
don't,
Until it dies, right?
yeah, but if you don't spend out the 12,000, it goes back to the general fund.
Correct, whatever's not spent out.
And then July 1, we start the new fund.
Then we have to officially have the word recreate that as.
Okay, got it. Understood. Thank you.
All right, would anyone like to make a motion to create to accept the property rental income from 135 King Street to put into a fund under section chapter 40, section 3 of Mass General Laws for the,
I would make that motion.
Second.
all right. Discussion, no, all those in favor, please vote aye.
Aye.
Okay. I fumbled that motion.
Fine.
What you.
Thank you.
Okay, project update.
So quick update, so we had our meeting with Activitas last Friday. Everything is moving along on schedule. We actually have some pictures of what the Beechwood playground will actually look like after taking into consideration some of the kids' ideas. Here are a couple of the play structures. So that is the largest play structure for ages 2 through 12 can play on that play structure.
Are those palm trees?
They are, we may not be making palm trees.
It's
Just
fantastic.
the illustration.
Would they be Beechwoods?
Good for
The next is this spider web climbing apparatus. Once again, kids loved it. They all had it in their photos, so it's something else that was chosen. If we move along, this is a sensory tunnel. It's a double sensory tunnel. And if you see inside, there's all kinds of activities for the kids to play with. This is handicap accessible as well. So there's optionality for this piece of equipment. And this spring rider is also accessible. We are going to have swing sets and some other ancillary items along the playground. It will be poured in place rubber. We're hoping to finalize all this equipment within the next couple of weeks and place the order because the lead time is significant, because we would really like to break ground in July. While the kids are enjoying the beach and the pool, we can renovate their playground. So when summer comes to a close, they'll have a beautiful new playground. There's going to be some shade structures and picnic tables as well. So this is a very exciting project.
That's pretty neat.
The next project is the tennis courts. So the initial geological testing was done. No hazardous materials were found, which is great. They did come and they asked about the retaining wall. Their recommendation is to leave the existing retaining wall up and put one in front of it. It'll cost us less money than ripping down the retaining wall, digging up some of Milliken Field. If we leave the existing wall in place, cut out the outlet almost that's separating the tennis courts and put a retaining wall against that. Not only will it save money, it'll save time. And it won't damage Milliken playing area.
Will that wall go on the inside of the existing, facing the tennis courts?
Yes,
So the distance from the end line of the tennis court to the wall is going to be shorter.
it'll be shorter. Right now, I think they said they have 18 feet. It only has to be 12 feet, but they're saying it would give us probably about 15.5 feet. I'll have to check those
Okay.
figures, but that's something they ran through the other day. But once I have the final designs, I'll be able to share that. They did ask if we were interested in pickleball courts. They believe we can fit some pickleball courts towards the end, not towards the property owner's home, but more towards the pathway on the opposite side. They can fit 2 pickleball courts. If the town so desires, they can put those in as an alternate and see how the pricing comes back. So that's part of that project. And the last piece of the puzzle is the sports wall on Sawyer Street. They've identified maybe some wetlands around there, so they have to do additional testing in that area. That project may not start at the same time as all the other projects. However, they just want to make sure it's done correctly, it's placed in the right spot, so we can maximize the use of it. But everything is moving along nicely.
Tell you, the pickleball courts over in Hull have taken off like a rocket. Putting that up. I just see people lining up.
Yeah. I get, why don't we have them in Cohasset? And I think even at the Cohasset Golf Club, the paddleboard courts have been converted to
They have.
pickleball courts
On Cedar Street?
on Cedar
Yeah, they're
Street.
going
Yeah,
nuts over there too.
yeah.
So,
I mean, if there's room and he can price it, I think and we're gonna save money on the wall. I would say, why
That was
not?
their thought. If
I
we're
would be
gonna
all
save
for
money
it.
here, let's see if we can put it somewhere else to maximize more recreational activities.
Yeah.
do you need anything from us to go?
Just your approval to add it as an alternate to the bid. So
I say
everyone's
yes.
aware that that's what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, well, that's great news on the retaining wall.
Oh,
Yeah.
one question on the Beechwood Playground. The basketball courts were going to be done at the same time or,
They are.
okay,
So they're gonna remove the fence in its entirety.
Yeah.
That will allow them to get the equipment into the basketball courts, and they'll be able to redo those at the same time. They've been waiting to have those done.
well, the fence will go back up.
Yes.
Okay, and will all that greenery come out that's growing in through the fence into the court? Okay,
So Michelle, just confirm, just for folks who may be interested and who could hear you, because I know sometimes they have trouble hearing. That that the Beechwood basketball courts are also going to be renovated at the same time, July and August, it sounds like.
Yes, that is correct.
Fence surrounding weeds torn up, redone, fence put back.
Posts, new boards. New boards. Very similar to what you saw the renovation happen over on Sawyer Street is what's gonna happen at Beechwood with the addition of a fence.
Okay. So it's gonna look like the new basketball courts behind the library, but with. Okay, well, that sounds great. All right, thank you. Anything else before we move? All righty, we are at the warrant.
The review process continues. Capital, the one positive update at the moment is that CPC has actually finished their work. And they have a few recommendations. They have additional funding for that pavilion, the library pavilion that was discussed earlier. For a pergola that would go outside here at the senior center. A hydration station over at Barnes Field, that's, a place where the kids can put their water bottles and fill them up with filtered water. And some funding for the Historical Society, the Classic Historical Society. It's something to do with the historic records preservation, something else with the building, digitizing some stuff. So, that's they're good. So that's going to start going through the advisory review process now. Capital advisory continue to grind through their review processes. It's going to be kind of an overall pause next week because of school vacation week. A lot of people are out. And then the last couple of weeks of April will be very busy. The review process for the zoning articles, that went, I think, fairly smoothly last week, as far as I understand. I think they had two that were continuing the conversations about, and I don't actually know to the hearings, but those will continue. The ones that have been approved through their process at planning will go onto advisory for the next set of reviews. So,
I've got a question on that since I sat on CPC. I'm sorry. Thanks. Hydration stations. It's gonna go with Barnes Field. CPC approved that. What do we have being set up? You have that gentleman who's looking at the water bottles and all that. So what is our program? I did say I'd bring that up
Yes, so as far as hydration stations for
at
some
the
of the,
different areas.
yep, so as far as the recreational projects that we have going on, we do have a hydration station at Milliken Field at the new snack shack / restrooms. We are incorporating one in the Beechwood area as well, so that they have the benefit of the basketball courts and the playground. Those are the only two areas cited at this time. I think we are looking to get one over here at Recreation. But we don't have the plan in place just yet, but I think we are actively looking at all the sites in town to see where we can best utilize them. And then there was a question about purchasing, how we're purchasing these units. And I know Hingham went through a bid process to secure the best pricing for these hydration stations, and we can buy off of Hingham.
I might do well with the farms people.
Gonna be drinking a lot of water here. Which is great. We should all drink lots of water and use our water bottles. So on the zoning bylaw articles, and maybe we need to have Tom come back and just update us. It appears that the planning board got through the reorganization, the MBTA communities, the parking, and the village and harbor. They were all given affirmative recommendations. It looks like as it relates to, I can't tell whether whether there were some changes to the parking that the planning board rejected the one space per bedroom. They changed the requirements to take away the planning board's waiver provision. I think we want to follow up on that because I would hate for advisory to think that was the warrant article going on the warrant. I think the planning board can move it forward and, suggest an edit, but the select board will need to decide whether.
You want to go back to you next before it goes to advisory?
I think I'm just trying to figure out what is going to advisory. That's not totally clear to me, and maybe we can have that discussion offline, but I think the select board put a warrant article on the warrant. And that should be the warrant article. Now, the planning board can make their suggestions, but they can't.
Well, so so you're right, at the end of the day, the select board could stop an article, I believe, on this. At the same time, it's referred on. The planning board has a public hearing and they can make edits. Now, it can come back and you could say, we don't like the edits.
Yeah.
But the process does allow that to happen. So you refer it, they have the hearing, and then it eventually has to go through the rest of the process. So you can come back to you folks and you can say, we don't like it. And again, it's the select board's warrant. It's not the planning board's. So,
Okay. Because I can't tell what the changes, like, I
Right.
can't see what the final version is. It looks like there's some back and forth, but it's not clear to me. And I think that this may be also reflected in any manager motion that we want to do if we have disagreement between the select board and the planning board on this issue. Because what it's really coming down to is who's going to pay for parking? Is it going to be the developer or the citizens that are going to be asked to pay for the parking constraints that we're all facing? That's sort of the way I see it. That's the way we've been sort of grappling with these and other issues. We know this, for example, is happening with private ways. Developers have been able to build and make private ways and not bring roads up to spec, and now we have a lot of people paying for that. And it's creating a lot of hardship for them, which I'm sensitive to, that, decisions that we just let slide way back when are now really coming back to us. So I do want to make sure we lock that down carefully. So it sounds like we're not ready to do anything on the zoning articles. Okay, we'll wait and see. Anything else, Chris, on the warrant articles?
Yeah. When do you want to have, you've really heard this as a petition town hall article for all intents and purposes, you've already really heard it. Do you want to schedule the plastic water bottle folks to come back in front of you at a future meeting?
Well, we definitely want the water bottle people, Adam, Norman, and whoever else is doing that. I think we probably might be looking for that. Presumably after advisories had a chance, right? Because aren't they going to make a recommendation to us? I think the question for the board is, do we want the citizens petitioners on town hall to come back? Yes, we had the forum, but we had a lot of specific questions that weren't answered directly. We didn't have that back and forth, which we may want. But maybe we feel like we have enough information. What do
I
people
would,
think?
I would recommend back in just for peace of mind, so we can hear about it in that they can't say they weren't heard. So.
Okay.
Because,
Well, and if they have new information, I think that would be important to hear too. I know, for example, they went to CPC seeking funding and that isn't the way the process works. And CPC told them that. And so in terms of what the funding is for their articles, I would be curious to know that and to know what their position is if and when we put the other capital item requests with specific sources of funding. Are we asking the town to buy 2 roofs? Like, what are we doing here? So I think it would be good to iron out some of those logistics with them because,
well, maybe they
They
could
would-
bring their roofing contractor in and say they do the whole roof for $250,000. I'd be interested to shake his hand.
I think that was sarcasm.
well, yeah. Sorry, my mind went a little blank. No, but I do think there could be some logistics we could work through.
So maybe April 30th for both of his petitions, tentatively look at
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then maybe zoning for the week you get back if they're ready, the 23rd.
yeah. And I think we would want the citizens petitioners to go through advisory and capital and understand where capital and advisory sit, including specific questions that they had that weren't answered that we might want to consider as well. I know capital has a lot of questions, and so I think it would be helpful to hear their feedback too, which we would normally do anyway, particularly for such an expensive project.
I think advisory does as well.
Advisory does as well. Yep, absolutely. That's right.
It is looking like you will need the one final meeting, the very first Tuesday of May to wrap everything. I think we're gonna go right to the very bitter end of this.
Okay. Okay.
But if you could just, unless there's a meeting, a midweek thing, I'll try, hopefully we'll keep these very tight. The 23rd and 30th will be very much town meeting focused.
Yeah, I think going forward, we're probably gonna just do all ATM. And so the warrant is finalized with the possible exception of some executive sessions. Okay, is there do we expect there to be more finalization, Chris, on the ATM articles?
Yeah, I'm just waiting for some comments back from council on
Okay,
the noise article.
okay,
And then I have to get you some, I probably on the 23rd at this point, these one-time cost, items and how the budget's gonna tie in a bow, so.
all right. Any other questions before we move to the next agenda item? Chris, I'm gonna give you the mic for the town manager update.
Just a couple of highlights off the report, which people can read online if they'd like. The acquisition of 135 Kings complete. We've keyed it, we own it. It's officially town property now, which is exciting. You've already heard the update from Michelle about rec. We just talked about the CPC. In terms of operational updates, I want you to know that Mary Goodwin's last day is actually the 15th, but it's really a week from this Friday because 15th is a holiday, so she's taking advantage of that as her last day. So if you want to stop in sometime in the next week or so, I wish her well. She's not leaving town. She and Ronnie are still staying in town, but her last day will be actually a week from Friday. We have hired a new public health nurse, Joan Taverna, who's actually been the public health nurse in Hull. And then before that, Weymouth will be joining us the week after. So she brings lots of experience. So it's going to be a very seamless transition. So we're very excited to have Joan join us. And that's my very quick update.
Righty, select board comments. Does anyone have a comment that would like to say a comment?
Well, yes, actually, a question. So maybe I should have brought it up during the town, the warrant review. When are we going to get a more fulsome review of the budget
Then at your next meeting.
and in all the departments?
I'll give you, I'll send you stuff next week. You can read it during your leisure during. the vacation.
Yeah, that would be great.
And if you have any side questions, feel free to.
Okay. Okay, and I did find, so thank you, I did find on the DPW page, the private street public road listing is from 2016. Chief Quigley sent me a 2019 update. If you want, I don't know who's updating the town website, but I can send it to Kevin if you want the more updated one.
You should have.
Okay,
I don't know how many roads have been built since then, but I probably the quick estates and whole.
yeah, 2019. So, thank you to whomever put up that old listing. It was there. And we talked about the citizens petition. So the road race was, Sunday, yes, 2 days ago, Cohasset Road Race by the Sea. Jean, volunteered, I volunteered, checking people in. I think they had a good turnout, good registration numbers, and the day turned out to be better than it had been forecasted to be. So that's a great annual tradition, and thank you to the Rotary Club for sponsoring it and doing it every year.
Yeah, having had occasion to take advantage of our EMT services, I think that they, first of all, I'd like to thank them. They did a wonderful job, and I think we in Cohasset should be very, very grateful that we have very, very professional service on that. And thanks, guys. Good to know that, you know, those of us in this town, when we have a need, will be well taken care of. So heartfelt thanks.
Nothing to add, thank you.
Nothing bad, it's a nice eclipse. We didn't see too much in Cohasset, they saw it up north. But, very nice to hear that by all lights.
So just real quick, just to echo what Ellen said about the road race, I was sad not to run it, but my, the volunteers I was working with had a lot of fun flagging the cars. And used up a lot of energy that probably next year, hopefully they'll use in a race, maybe the Cohasset Road Race. I was working with the Boy Scouts. So the other thing I just wanted to put a plug in for is Cohasset's Earth Day that our Open Space and Recreation Committee is sponsoring. It's our 6th annual. It's Saturday, April 27th from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. This is something that I did last year, and I know others have done on this board. It's a one-day program. It's free, so you can pick up trash for free. And we appreciate it if you do. It's at 100 Sawyer Street this year. It's not at the town hall. You should bring a trash bag and gloves. DPW is available if you find large items like tires and lobster traps. And I think Open Space in the town also wants you to post to social media in order to spread the word. So again, I'm trying to help them spread the word and trying to get people to, you know, come out and help clean up our beautiful town, to keep it beautiful. Okay, so thanks to the Open Space and Recreation Commission for getting the word out and doing social media, and we should continue to do social media to get the word out there. The next item is approval of minutes for March 19th and April 2nd.
I just have one edit. Tracy, for March 19th, in public comment, the resident was Charlie DeSantis. DeSantis. Yeah.
I did have a comment on March 19th. I think it was March 19th. For the zoning bylaw update, we did have a lengthy discussion, including what the board wanted included in those zoning bylaws. I think it would help to have that laid out a little more, including so we can make clear what was on the warrant and referred. So if the board doesn't mind, I would propose to hold that until we have that more fulsome information in there, because I think that's important to have that sort of fully fleshed out, if that's okay with the board. So I would propose that we move forward on the April 2nd meeting minutes, and hold on those. Because we did have quite a long discussion back and. If that's okay with the board, I would propose we hold on the 19th, but move forward on April 2nd.
That's fine. So I'll make a motion to approve the Cohasset Select Board minutes of April 2nd, 2024.
Second,
And I would just note right above on the minutes, we just want to change them to April 2nd, instead of March 19th, at the top header. Okay, all those in favor, please vote aye.
Aye.
Okay, unanimous. We don't have anything under the 48-hour rules, so would anyone like to make a motion to
make a
adjourn?
motion to adjourn.
Motion, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all right. All those in favor, please vote aye.
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 Aye.